Let's make creamy chicken gnocchi soup better than Olive Garden. First step is to make gnocchi. Now, gnocchi is potato dumplings, specifically Italian. First, you will need 2 pounds of russet potatoes. Bake them, peel them, and cool them. You can even do this the day before and just wrap them up and keep them in your fridge till you're ready to use. We'll also need 1 egg. And this is a half a cup of grated cheese, Parmesan to be exact. Some regular all-purpose flour, about 1 cup. And nutmeg. You can use pre-ground nutmeg like you have here, or you can use a spice grater and grate fresh nutmeg. Of course, you know I like fresh is best, but you use whatever you have on hand. And last but not least, table salt and black pepper to taste. First step is we're going to add our potatoes to our food processor. Break them up with your fingers a little bit. That's always good. You can also do this in a bowl and mash them with a potato masher, but I'm using the food processor. After we have pulsed it 10 times, we're going to add an egg and our half cup of Parmesan cheese, along with some nutmeg. You don't need a lot of nutmeg, just, equivalent of a pinch or 2. Here I am grating, of course, the fresh nutmeg. And then add your 2 pinches of table salt, some black pepper to taste. That's maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and pulse again about 10 more times. Not everything will be totally mixed in, but that's okay because we're going to finish kneading our dough on our floured work surface, or in this case, a large bowl. I like to use a large bowl because it makes less of a mess. So adding your dough to your large bowl, you can see it get out. If you need to use a spatula to get the rest of it out, by all means. Right now it's a little sticky, but we're going to start adding and working in the flour. And 1/4 cup at a time, kneading in between each addition. We're just going to knead that flour in there. You don't need to be too rough. We're not trying to make bread here. We're just trying to basically get it where the dough is not sticking to our hands anymore. It's still soft, but not so sticky that we can't get it off our fingers. So just keep adding the flour until you get that right consistency. So as you can see, when I stick my finger in, it's still slightly tacky, but not too bad. We're now going to take this dough and put it on a floured work surface. And if you got to work just a little bit more flour into it, you can do that as well. So generously, of course, flour your tabletop or work surface and put your dough on that. Okay, now I've, of course, cleaned off my hands. They were just a little too sticky. I have my dough sitting out, and I'm just kneading just a little bit more, making sure it's covered in flour. If you see here now, I have a gnocchi paddle. This paddle helps you create the ridges in the gnocchi and roll it, or you can use a table fork, and I'll show you how to do that as well. All right, now we have our big mound of dough. I'm going to pinch off about a golf-sized ball of dough because it's much easier to work with. And rolling that dough in between my hands and then into the flour on my work surface, I am going to roll this into a log. And I want the log to be about the diameter of my finger. So you just gently roll it and continue rolling it. It's going to make a long rope. And once you get it to the right diameter, we're going to start cutting them into bite-sized pieces. Okay, now we're going to cut our rope into our bite-sized pieces. I use the rule of thumb, pardon the pun, of the tip of my finger to the first joint, and that's about the length of the piece I would like to have. That gives me a good one bite dumpling. So now we're ready to use our gnocchi paddle, and we're just going to take one of the pieces that we cut and roll the dumpling down our gnocchi board. Be very gentle, do not press hard. You're just rolling it down gently, and it's going to cause your dumpling to dent on one side and have grooves on the other. And the grooves and the dent on the other side help hold either your pasta sauce or any type of sauce that you want to add to it. It holds that in there. And here's a side view. This is really how you would hold it. And you would just gently run your thumb along the board. Sometimes the grooves get filled up with flour or some of the dough, and you can just clean them out with the fork tines so you can get more of those ridges again. But you just keep rolling them down, let gravity help you, and before long you have quite a few dumplings. So continue and use up all of your dough, making the logs and then cutting them into bite-sized pieces, and of course rolling them down your gnocchi board or using a fork. Okay, here's a close-up of the well that you can see in the back of the gnocchi, and if you turn it over, you're going to see the ridges. Here's how to use a fork. It's basically the same concept. You take your little bit of dough, your dumpling, and you roll it down the tines of your fork. And you just continue doing that until you get all your dough rolled into your little gnocchi dumpling. It'll stick into the tines, and practice makes progress. If that really is too hard, you can just use your fork to press some indentions into your gnocchi. It won't have the little well on the back side, but it makes cute little square dumplings. Don't press too hard. And there you have your finished dumplings. I like to take the dumplings and put them on a parchment-lined cookie sheet and put them in the freezer. Single layer, of course, so they do not stick together. And once they are frozen, then I can put them into a baggie and store them in the freezer. I prefer to use the frozen ones as to the fresh ones. Now we're ready to make our soup. The ingredients for the soup are 2 cups fresh chopped spinach, 1/2 cup diced onions, 1/4 cup shredded or diced carrots, 1/4 cup of diced celery, and 2 cloves of garlic. I am adding 2 cups of chopped roasted chicken. I just get a rotisserie chicken and take off the breast and cut it into bite-sized chunks. But you can roast your own or bake your own. And I like to add umami to my soup, so I'm taking some leftover Parmesan rind, save those pieces, and some red pepper flakes just for a little bit of heat. Of course, our nutmeg, pre-ground or freshly grated, of course, with your little spice grater. You can use a microplane. A microplane works just as well. This is a microplane as opposed to the little spice grater. And of course, we need some good either olive oil or vegetable oil. If you don't like the flavor of olive oil, add vegetable oil. Some salt and 4 cups of hot chicken broth, whether you make it yourself or you buy it. This is homemade, of course. 1.5 cups of half and half. Okay, I'm preheating a large skillet, but if you're going to make a double batch or triple the batch, you would use a large stock pot. Once your pan is preheated, then you would put in your 2 tablespoons of oil and let that oil heat up too. When the oil is hot enough, it'll start to shimmer and dance across your pan. You'll kind of see it move along the bottom of the pan. Of course, the oil spreads out along the bottom of the pan as well. That means your pan is hot enough to now put in the food. First, we're going to add our chopped onion and our celery and carrots. And you'll notice that they are sizzling already in the pan. We don't have to wait for it to come up to heat because we've already preheated everything. Give it a good stir. I add about 2 pinches of salt. If you salt your layers as you go along, at the end you won't have to put so much salt in your food. Trust me, this works. So we just continue to occasionally stir and let our vegetables get soft and translucent. They should take between 7 to 10 minutes on medium heat. We do not want our vegetables to get brown, just translucent and soft. You see how you can see almost through that onion? That's how we want our vegetables. All right, at the end now we're going to add in our minced garlic. Be careful with garlic, it can easily burn. I only cook it about maybe 30 seconds to a minute. Now it's time to add our hot chicken stock to our pan. It's best to add hot broth as opposed to cold broth because then you don't have to wait so long for the temperature to come back up into your pan. Add in that little bit of Parmesan cheese. Always save the rind because you can use it to add lots of good flavor. And now we're going to let this simmer. Oh, don't forget to add your red pepper flakes if you desire them. The Parmesan is optional as well too. Nutmeg is not optional. Put in a pinch of nutmeg or grate your own. All right, now that we have added everything into our pot, just give it a quick stir, bring it back up to simmer and simmer it for 10 minutes. And once that is done, we're going to add our gnocchi. I like to use frozen gnocchi. I think it's just easier to handle. So if you want to make it a day ahead, that's best. If you use fresh, be careful because they are very delicate. Once you've put all your gnocchi in, give it a good stir and let that simmer for another 10 minutes. Now add your hot half and half. And that's only going to simmer for 5 minutes. Give it a good stir and bring that back up to a simmer. And we're going to add our 2 cups of chopped spinach and also our 2 cups of roasted chicken. You can always add more chicken if you would like a more meatier soup. Give that a stir and let that simmer for 5 minutes. Once it has simmered for the 5 minutes, take it off the heat or turn off the heat. Add some freshly ground black pepper and a squeeze of lemon if you would like to add a little more brightness to the soup. The lemon is optional. And there you have it, creamy chicken gnocchi soup with homemade gnocchi. Serve it with a little extra Parmesan. Oh, delicious. Bon appetit.